Hi, Sanis. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for taking the time to being here and speaking with our community.
Sure. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity and sharing my learnings over a period of 2 years, 20 years primarily. Thank you very much.
Definitely, we are excited to get your learnings,
Yeah.
your knowledge,
Sure. Yeah.
your 20 years in 20 minutes, hopefully.
Yeah. So the topic is much deeper. Let's see how I can able to do a justice with this particular topic.
No, I'm sure it will be great, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much again once for having,
Yeah.
taking the time and coming here.
Thank you.
Do you just want to dive right in, sir? We started having questions from our business
Sure.
community.
Yeah.
All right. So the first question is from Karishma. She said, "Hello, Amit. In B2B sales, when doing a cold outreach, in your experience,
Hmm.
what works faster for closure? Approaching leadership to pitch your product or service? Or do you think you should pitch it directly to the business or vertical head as applicable?"
Sure. So typically, that's a dilemma every B2B sales guy will always have in life is that whether we typically called in the business languages, whether we should take a top-down approach or bottoms-up approach to a certain extent, right? And there is no clear answer to it because every organization works in a very different way. They are into different contexts. So depends on top to down and bottom up approach is like if even if you go from top to down, finally the revenue starts only when the product gets implemented and the users start using it to a certain extent. So until as there is a help and the support coming from bottom up, the actual implementation does not happen in that sense. Or sometimes it happens that you take a bottoms up approach where you stuck at a level where you are not able to reach to a decision maker and the decision does not happen there to a certain extent. And you just keep doing rounds and waste of time, money and resource happens there, right? So actually as a good B2B sales guy, will always try to manage both ends of this spectrum. And that is where, if you look at it, B2B sales is not an individual effort. There is no heroic efforts here. It's a teamwork. So if you are a junior guy, you started connecting with a team which is on a lower side of it. Then your senior manager comes, and then your top management comes, and everyone touches at their individual levels to create that spin, to generate that particular sale, right? Until unless both ends meet, the closure happens very rarely, and that is where I think B2B sales is not an individual sales; it's always a team effort to a certain extent.
Sounds great. I mean, that's definitely quite interesting and valid point. I think that's what a lot of people don't realize at this point. We're just waiting for a couple more questions. Okay. So I was like, is there any general advice that you can give to somebody who is trying to break into B2B sales? Like, who's just a fresher starting in B2B sales. So how do you generally
Sure.
make your approach? What is the first step, the first step that you should take when you are planning to pitch to somebody?
Sure, sure. So the first step is basically thing we need to understand is that the temperament level required for B2B sales is very different. So the person who is getting into the sales profession, specifically into B2B, has to have a very self-aware himself, right? So his IQ, emotional quotient, and as well as intellectual quotient also has to be at a certain level because this will test patience to a greater extent. And as a young blood, we would like to have a results very fast to a certain extent, right? But in B2B segment, there's a typical sales cycle. Sometimes sales cycle goes beyond a year and 12 months and 18 months, depends on the size of the deal to a certain extent. And as a young professional, we should not show that much of hurry. So they're required a pause. They're required stability of mind, right? And it's not depend on age to a certain. It depends on the individual. Young person can also be very calm in his approach to a certain extent, right? But they need to understand themselves very well that is my temperament fit for this particular role or not, right? Secondly, that particular person also has to see that the domain he is getting into it is will he enjoy that particular domain or not to a certain extent because until unless he captures the domain knowledge, the language speaks by that particular industry. Until unless he gets into that language, very rarely people will start listening to him because first you are young enough, secondly you don't know the industry in a proper way, right? And this industry is not only people think that it's only relationship industry, but this is more of a knowledge industry also. Relationship will start get building up when you show that you are really knowing what their problem statements are and you are talking the same language what customer is talking, and that's where relationship will start building up there. and then managing and taking everyone along with you is the ability which any sales guy at any level in B2B segment has to show that, because this is like two institutions are getting connected to each other, right? So there are internal stakeholders, there are external stakeholders, and as a sales guy, you need to manage internal stakeholders as well as external stakeholders so that your deal gets closed over the period of time, right? So I think these are the basic ingredients fresh sales guy would like to get into this particular phase, and they should not expect results very fast. If they get it, they are lucky. But as an approach, they should be patient enough to get the result.
That's great advice, sir, because I think that's what most people suffer with, they don't have the patience. They always want
Yeah.
to rush, can we get a reply?
Absolutely.
Can we get a some kind of a
Yes.
this? If you are not in a position to reply, can I get a contact, or somebody,
Absolutely.
can I speak to your manager? Basically.
Yeah.
So I think that's great advice.
Right.
Thank you. So another question you have from Victoria. It's like, good afternoon, sir. What
Yeah.
role do you see data analytics and artificial intelligence playing in the future of business development and partnerships?
Okay, so traditionally, if you look at it, a lot of things, technology is changing to a certain extent. And earlier, a sales guy moving into an account in a physical world was a source of information for the organizations coming as a feedback, market feedback to the internal teams, right? Nowadays, because of our technology, that information overflow is already there. Earlier, the competition knowledge used to come as a source from a sales guy to the organization. Now that competition knowledge is also available across medias, right? So what change this particular technology is happening in the role over the period is more going towards the marketing side of it to a certain extent. And that's where the data analytics and AI are playing a role in terms of possibility and all. Although saying that the B2B sales will never happen until unless there is a human touch involved in that, right? Primarily for there are a couple of reasons to it. One, because these are the large deals and tenure is long enough, people would like to trust a human being there, right? So I will not deal with someone who is just coming virtually to meet to beyond the point. Of course, that role has limited for limited meetings. Earlier, that was very frequent meetings to happen, but because technology is available there, people are meeting online, the meetings are happening online to a certain extent. But then, as a final point, what people will look at as a final negotiation part or closure of deal, they would like to meet you in person, no matter what. Okay. So you can get more information, you can have a predictability, you can have a engines like Salesforce to predictable, but the human intuition. So I always believe, even I am a technocrat, being a computer science grad and then moved into marketing. So I believe my five value systems are intuition, innovation, collaboration, compassion, and ethics. These five value systems will never go away, even whatever automation comes into picture, right? And as a good sales guy, you will require that, because whatever your data says, what your heart says will matter most from a customer end, from the seller end, both sides. And that intuition, once you walk into that particular account, so a typical seasoned sales guy will understand is that once he walks into account, within 30 seconds, he will understand whether in this account I'm going to get deal or not, right? So he gets that signal. That's how the moment as you enter into a temple or any religious place, the moment you feel that kind of a vibe, a seasoned sales guy will smell that particular account. No matter how many rounds he will do after that, he will do it just to keep that relationship so that one point in time make customer give him a chance. But very few minutes he will understand whether this will work or not, right? So that chemistry is what is important, which no technology can replace beyond a point, right? So human factor will never go away. Of course, as a sales guy coming forward, the data science, the artificial intelligence, you need to use for your better approach, improved approach to a certain level, uh, keeping human oriented and human touch to a greater extent, right? Because that's where when it comes to taking decision, your heart is close to your mind than your pocket, right? So that is where people will go.
Definitely, that's accurate, sir. I think we all tend to make decisions with our emotions first, and
Yeah,
then secondary with our logic. So I think
absolutely.
that's very apt and good information, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so then we'll go. We have a question from Neha. He said, "Hi Amit, how do you suggest keeping momentum going in B2B sales when most large deals take a year to get signed on paper?"
So one is that the momentum, as I said, is a long deals primarily happen, and that's where what today a customer is looking at you is, are you a thought leader or not? Because customer is interested to talk to a sales guy who will give a vision to a customer, right? And that is where the storytelling of a sales guy is coming largely into picture, right? So two skills are very, very important today's days. Since the technology has taken a lot of sales space by various areas, is one is storytelling and another is negotiation skills. So storytelling is basically you need to understand what is the problem. So what is the problem statement? Who is villain in that case? What problem statement customer is giving you, right? And you need not make to hero yourself. So you are not a problem solver. You need to help a client to be a problem solver, right? And that change of ownership from my product, where what I want to sell, you find a champion within that organization who feels that this is the product I want in my organization, right? That the moment you convert that, the same person will take you to various stakeholders as a champion. He will promote you within that particular organization, right? And for that, every time, whenever you get a chance of conversations or through emails or through chats, is always you need to give a thought leadership to that particular person, because beyond an organization, there is an individual who is working, and he'll always think that if I need to work with you, what's in it for me? These are the process you need to keep involving. So your knowledge about the industry, your knowledge about the problem statement, how you are going to help him, has to be constant touch points to this particular person. And that interest will keep building, that trust will keep building to a certain extent, where finally you will be able to close the deal because someone believes in your thought leadership to a certain extent. It is not gone beyond the transactional deals nowadays, right? So no one would like to hear from you what the transactions are. They would like to see what's happening, going to happen in future, and where am I going to fit on an individual level as well as on organization.
That's very accurate. So I think nowadays, especially with so much competition and so much access to information, people
Yeah,
have kind of moved beyond to like, just, okay, I can get this from anywhere, but who do I
absolutely.
have that connect with?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
So all transaction
Otherwise, it
information
goes back.
available on sites, everyone competition, you already have a comparison chart, right? So what you are going to speak there, right? No one is interested in presentations there because they already know about your organizations to a greater extent. Product features are to a similar level. Similar, it's like me too kind of a products. Even if you don't have one or two features, you are going to develop it, or the competition is going to catch up with you in that case, right? So this is beyond that, how you take that conversations onto thought leadership, how you create a story, and how you create the person who is in touch with you as a hero of that particular story, right? That is how you need to create that. So there is a villain, which is a problem statement, and then you need to create your connect as a hero within that organization who is addressing that problem statement. I think that's as a sales as our job to a certain extent.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's definitely easier said than done. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, most people don't realize how difficult sales exactly is. They're
absolutely,
like, you go pitch and you'll this, but to get that product, to land that client, to make that connection with that client is absolutely difficult.
absolutely, absolutely. And it requires, and that is why it was deep learning and passion to a certain extent. That's what earlier when I said that when you are getting into particular industry as a B2B sales guy, you need to have a love for that particular domain, right? And that is where you will keep track what's happening, what is there. There is a story behind it. You will know what exactly happened. If you are not in touch, and this will not come directly towards you as a download. It is your own effort which you will have to put it to keep abreast yourself with what's happening in the industry, right? And it could be directly information coming from newspaper or sites, but there are so many things which you will take as a cues from coming from customer. It will come from your observation within that particular industry, right? So your eyes and ears and every breathe you need to breathe that particular industry to a certain extent, and that's where you will, when you speak with that passion, definitely the customer will think that he knows better than me at this juncture, and I could look at him that he can guide me that how my work has to be or my company has to take to a direction, and I should trust this particular.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, like, if you don't love your product, how can you sell your product if you like,
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
only if you become the hero for your product, then the other person will take you seriously.
Yes.
Absolutely correct, sir. Valid. So we'll just move on to the next question from Rahila. It's like, Mr. Amit, what trends or innovations do you see on the horizon for business development and partnerships in the tech industry?
So it depends on your organizations. Is basically, a lot of people are taking calls that. So sales is a particularly is always a cost, so very costly center to a certain until they start generating a revenue beyond a point, right? Because putting up a sales team is always you need to see, and there are no magicians involved, right? So they're all human beings. You cannot just say that because I hired a sales guy and now I'm going to start getting a revenue, right? As long as your products are comparable, your costs of the products are competitive in the marketplace, right? And that is where a right sales guy pitching that particular product at a right price point with a with his thought leadership has a more chances of closing the deal to a certain extent, right? And now depends on the organization size. Every organization can take a different routes here. You can go for a direct sales if you have a capacity to invest into a direct sales to a greater extent, or else if you are not able to do that, you will piggyback on certain large companies as your product to go to B2B segment because they already have a connect and reach and wider reach, and you are not able to manage that. So you would like to have alliances and partnerships coming in that sense, which will take your product across the geographies, maybe within India or maybe beyond India to a certain extent, right? And that is where depends on what's your strength and what's your revenue model and what's your strategy, and depends on the product also, because not every product is transferable skills, right? As an OEM, if I need to sell a particular product, I need to have that kind of a depth knowledge, which if am I easily possible to give it to alliances and partnerships, then I should use that particular channel, or else I should be building my own sales team slowly and steadily to get into that particular space, right? And business development in B2B is upcoming as a challenge segment because since COVID has happened, a lot of things has moved online. Even the B2B sales guys, those who are moving into a field, lot of people change into virtual sales, and that is becoming a very difficult for an individual to adjust of coming from a physical world to coming into virtual cycle, because uh, nowadays customers also not going every day to office. They are going only a couple of days to office. Whenever they are going to office, they have other work to do that. So giving time to discuss with you, to entertain you is also becoming difficult. And suddenly the sales guys, B2B sales guys, those who were good at oratory skills and a relationship skills primarily, has to have now writing skills very properly. So your connects are happening through LinkedIn. Now, what kind of a message are you sending on a LinkedIn will define that whether someone is taking interest in you or not. What kind of a mail are you sending to a person will generate an interest for your company, right? So besides the oral skills which a typical sales guy used to have, and very rarely they would look as a writing skill as their own strength. Now, lot of sales guys are struggling to have a proper writing skills, right? So that is becoming an area because second, I also creating a LinkedIn proper profile. Now, when I don't know you personally and I'm reaching out to you for my product sales to a certain extent, the first thing I will do is to go on a LinkedIn. If I don't get impressed by your LinkedIn profile, very rarely chance that I'm going to get interact with you, right? Forget about closing the sales and closing the deal there, right? Now, within that profile, am I seeing similar people, those who are in a connect at a similar level? So all those things matter. So as a B2B sales guy, if I'm in a particular industry, it matters to me that whom I am connected, at what level I am connected, so that then people will at least accept your invitation as a friend request if you want to get connected, or they will give value to your email when you write email to that particular person. Else, as a like mass marketing, no one is going to look at what you wrote, and they will never hear you from, because your physical connections are slowly getting reduced to a certain level, and that is where these are the new trends which B2B sales guy has to acquire over the period of time.
Absolutely. So I think technology is making things easier and difficult at the same time. It's like completely changing the field. I
Yeah,
mean, like you get access to more information, you get access to more contacts. Like, with LinkedIn, you can connect 100 people in a day, but
yeah,
actually connecting with them and getting that reply, as you said, is absolutely difficult.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
So I was just saying Nirma's question. It's like, I would
Hmm.
like to know what role does emotional intelligence play in B2B sales, and how can it be developed?
Yes, so emotional intelligence is an important role. In fact, there are three, four quotients which you can take it as a part of. So there is the innate quotient, which is that how internally I'm intelligent enough. Then acquired quotient is that how am I acquiring the knowledge from different fields, right? Then you have a innovation quotient, that how innovative I am in my approach. And then emotional quotient is basically building up the relationships to a certain extent, right? And that is where the first thing which I spoke earlier also is that the emotional quotient first block is that am I self-aware or not about myself, right? That is the first thing which I need to have it. Whether I'm socially aware or not, whether I have a self-control or not, right? So that is what I said, patience. If you are going to lose the patience, if you are not you are not able to control your emotions and you just blurt it out, or you just lose your patience in front of a customer, is that I am sitting here for 4 hours and you are not giving me a time. I think that things will not work, because when you are working in a B2B segment, you are taking uh, uh, almost a lot of stakeholders, and there is a favor bank you need to create. So there are stakeholders coming from a different departments, right? So there you can put it in them in the four buckets to a certain extent. One is a user group, second is an influencer group, third is a decision maker, and fourth is a troublemaker. Even they are troublemaker, they should not have a negative opinion about you, right? That's what called as a favor bank. So when you sit for a final negotiation, no one say should be in opposed to you. They may not be in favor for you, but they should not be in opposed to you. So someone wants to go with you as a final decision, everyone should say yes. Even someone don't want to go with you, they should not say no, not to, because even one person says no, all other stakeholders will have to think that why is saying no. And maybe at a certain position, you will have to adhere to that particular person's viewpoint, because you are working in one particular organization and you don't want to disturb that ecosystem to a great extent just to take one particular decision, right? So as a business, B2B sales guy, you have to be that kind of a self-control and self-awareness, and then social awareness and social control to a certain extent. That what is that trends which are going in the market to a certain extent, in terms of your approach, how the competition is approaching to a certain extent, right? Then is my company is doing ethical work to a certain extent, how those things are matter, right? So lot of things you will have to be aware in that sense, and that is where emotional quotients, four quadrants, are very very applicable in any B2B sales, whether it's a large government sales or whether it's a private sales, all things matter, and that is where how you develop it is primarily through practice. There is no other way. You need to challenge yourself every day. You need to show your behavior in certain difficult situations. You need to learn from your senior sales team members, that how they are behaving. I was fortunate enough, I learned my bosses, those who were 20, 25 years older than me. So the way they used to behave, the way they used to talk, that learning directly happened to me as a way of learning. And I think that observation and that patience is required when you are moving in this particular role, and you will learn through this particular through practice and observations to a greater extent. And that is where emotional quotient is very very important.
Well, it's, I mean, especially some of the newer generation, they don't realize the importance that the experience has. Like, the people
Yeah,
who have experience, they've learned that through trial and error. So it's like, it's easier, like, you should just take advantage of that as opposed to
absolutely,
doing the same
absolutely.
trial and error for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a question from Shruti. She's like, how do you recommend tailoring the sales approach for different industries in the B2B space?
Yeah, so typically, if you look at it, first thing in a B2B segment, we need to understand is that what is the buying process of a particular industry, right? Now, if I take, for example, government as a B2B segment, right? So there is an RFP, there is a tendering which happens. Now, until unless you are there since the putting up those RFP in the place, guiding that particular individual and helping him to put that RFP in the place, right? Putting up an eligibility criteria that makes you eligible while you go for that particular RFP, right? You are not there. Even after you do this kind of a help, there is no guarantee or surety that you will close the deal, because there is the L1, L2, L3 concept there. So whosoever bids the lowest gets the deal, right? So even if you have done the complete hard work, then also you may lose the particular deal, right? And at other places you may won and someone else has done it. And that is where in B2B segment you will look at it. It's not like a B2B B2C concept where there are very fierce competitors. They're all collaborators to a certain extent, because when you are entering into any B2B segment, you need to first make the customer educated, and that's a very long process to make customer educated for any product for that matter. So even if you talk about the new now GPT coming and AI coming, now everyone has to put efforts to educate that particular customer. Now, until unless there is a competition, there is an industry. If I alone go and talk about that, no one is going to believe me first thing, because they will say, no, you are the only operator in this particular space and no one else is talking about it. So I'm not going to give an attention to it. But similarly, there are 4 to 5 people coming like me and talking the same language to a customer. Then you'll start, okay, something is happening in this space, right? So in a B2B space, you are not looking competition as a competition. They are actually helping you to make that industry coming up as well, growing that particular industry, right? So what is your buying behavior? What kind of a competition you are coming in will define that what's your sales process has to adopt that, right? And that is where you need to align your sales process with the buying behavior of that particular customer to a greater extent. Secondly, there is the concept called band, which is like budget, authority, need, and timeline. You need to understand that which industry will take how much time to close the deal, right? What is their life cycle while closing the deal? Whom I am speaking is an authority to that particular stuff or not? Have they already approved budgets or not? Right. So that will define me is what is my sales cycle, what is my projections, and it will change industry. Even in B2B segment, it will change from industry to industry. So even B2B, if you have a hardware sales, that's a different, because your emotional connect, emotional involvement, still it's a B2B customer is there, but it's not deep as good as when you are selling enterprise applications like SAP or core banking solutions, right? Because once you married to do the applications, you are married for years. It's very difficult. Even marriages can break on a lighter note very easily and get divorced. But changing an application from and migrating to another, from SAP to Oracle or from core banking, from Finacle to TCS core banking is very, very difficult, right? Very rarely happens until unless there is a real need or there is a real some chaos happens from one of the organization, then only things will happen in that direction. So that is where industry to industry you will have to see what is the buying behavior, what is their persona types, what is their decision making process, and you need to adopt that particular stuff. In a bit, if your organization is smaller in size, revenue wise, and there is an RFP condition, you need to understand whether I will fit into that turnover criteria or not, or are they required of 5 years of existence? If I'm not fitting in that case, immediately I need to pick up some sales system integrators like large organizations and piggyback on those RFPs and support them to fill those RFPs till the point I become large enough to dictate the terms in terms of a turnover or in terms of years of experience in that particular field, right? So because we need to understand, this is like a marriage here. You see that the opposite party is equally capable or not, right? My product may be a great. My product is absolutely great. It's a world class product, but I'm a 10 crore company and I'm going and approaching SBI that you take my product. SBI, the first question will come that how you will ensure that you will sustain over the period of time. If I take your product, what is the sustainability thing you will do? As at 10 crore, how long you are going to be there, right? But if I'm a TCS and I'm going to SBI, they know that TCS is going to be there, SBI is going to be there, right? So my decision making becomes very, very easy for that man. So as a startup, you have a great product, but I'm not there from a turnover or a scale perspective. I should be immediately tied with TCS and by saying this is a product which is a great product, and then through TCS, SBI will be able to take it because then TCS is front ending that particular product, right? So there is no hard feelings there. So a lot of startup feel that the why the large organizations are not taking my product. My product is very great to a greater extent. They are not allowing me to bid for that. But we need to understand that they also have it's a public money to a greater extent in large government organizations. They need to be very sure that whatever they choose is scalable and stable and sustainable over the period of time, right? So that is a decision making you need to understand, and that is how you need to tailor your approach from industry to industry.
Amazing, sir. That's a great insight on that. So we just have one question from Kabir. He's saying,
Yeah.
I've heard that hunting in sales is very challenging. Any tips on how to succeed in hunting?
Yeah. So out of 20 years, I was always a hunter. I never had a farming to a greater extent, right? So, because that's what my forte is. So, hunting is basically, as again said, is a persona type which you need to be do it, right? So, hunting first requires is that am I curious enough to know the things? Okay, am I ready to work in a chaos where there is no clarity? Am I ready to go and talk to people I never know? Right? So these are the personality type which I should be very, very clear about myself as a self-awareness. Okay, if I am a guy who is always I'm a good relationship guy, but I generally don't go and talk to new people very easily. Then I'm a farming guy. Then I will go and sit in an account and then keep farming that account and will take that particular lead, right? Secondly, as I said, your thought leadership is a very, very important while you do a hunting, because as a hunter, you should be knowing and you should be one step ahead, right? That is how you can do hunting. Otherwise, how you do hunting, right? So from your prey, you need to be one step ahead. You need to be in a strategic, and in your speed, in your approach, you need to be one step ahead. So if you are not one step ahead and people are not looking at you, that okay, when Amit is walking in, am I going to listen something new? If I'm not providing that and I'm not fulfilling that expectations, I think then their expectations will go away, right? So that is very, very important for me, for any sales guy who wants to win hunting. So ability to be curious enough, ability to talk to newer people, ability to create a thought leadership will definitely help you to hunt more clients. And then it's like the approach has to be like, when you say hunting is not showing impatience, it's like the way duck swims in a pond, right? So he is very calm and stable on above the water, but inside the water, his legs are just moving like very, very fast, right? And that is how the entire approach of a sales guy should be. Internally, he should feel that when I'm going to close this particular deal, even if I know that it's going to take longer period of time, does not mean that I should be relaxed in that sense. But on the outer face, I should be very calm. I should not show that desperation. I should not frustrate, and I should not vent out that frustration on my customer by saying, "Oh, so much of delay. I already given it to my proposal 6 months back, and you are not taking any decisions yet. What's happening there? Are you all going to close the deal or not?" So that kind of a language will not work there, right? So you outside you need to be very calm. Inside you need to be very impatient. And with this skill set, I think hunting becomes so very, very enjoyable stuff, right? Because that gives you a very sense of achievement to a certain extent.
Definitely, that's really good points, sir. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's definitely going to help anybody who is looking to get into a hunting aspect of the sales. I mean, if you don't, as you said validly, like if you're not the first person there, if you're not the one step ahead, then you're just losing. So we'll
Absolutely.
just close out with one last question, sir, since
Sure.
we're already at time. What advice would you give to startups or entrepreneurs looking to establish successful partnerships with larger organizations?
Yeah, so as a suggestion, as a startup and organization, one is that the product has to be in a very niche area. Because if you are developing a Me Too product, which already the large organizations has, the chances of connecting with a large enterprise becomes very difficult, because given a choice, if large organization comes through with the same product with service, smaller organization going with the same product, my choice of larger organization will be always much higher, right? So the product has to be niche to a greater extent. Secondly, depends on the buying criteria, as I said, depends on the size. You need to define your go-to-market strategy primarily. And in that sense, if you are approaching for a large enterprise, going with system integrators like IBM or HP or TCS, Infosys, makes a sense, because their already connects are there, their relationship guys are already present, and you are selling that particular product to that particular relationship. If you are really good and you want to have a direct approach towards the enterprise, and you say, no, I want to build that particular capability within me rather than using someone else's capability, I think proof of concept becomes a great way of doing the things, because larger organizations may not be able to give a direct order, but they can definitely give a chance as a proof of concept, where you will get a chance to prove yourself within that organization. And once you show that proof of concept as a special consideration case, they may start looking at you to adopt that particular product to give that order. And this particular condition I'm saying because private organization does not come under CVC guidelines, right? So even large banks like HDFC Asset does not come under CVC guidelines, which is a Central Vigilance Commission guideline. So they are by force, they don't have to go through RFP route. Whereas the public sector banks like SBI or any government institute will have to go through a RFP route. There you require three quotations coming from L1, L2, and 3, and they will decide on the price criteria once you are technically qualified in the particular RFP. But the private organizations, you can definitely get into that particular space through your niche product, basically, get through a proof of concept, and then through that proof of concept, show that return on investment to that particular customer, and definitely that customer will give you more chance. Only caution note is that sometimes that product becomes so much customized to a particular enterprise that that product does not applicable to other enterprise. I think that's where someone has to be very careful that they should not lose the vision of overall product while they try to get into one enterprise segment serving that. So these are the strategies along with some tactics they can definitely get into enterprise.
Thank you, sir. I mean, that's completely valid. I think, I mean, definitely, like, I think we always do that over corrections. I think if one is like, if they're too generalized, they would go too niche, or if they're too niche, then they become too generalized. It's, I think, a
Yes,
difficult this to get that perfect middle part, like, where they would,
absolutely.
like, be valid to the company also, but niche enough that they would have that value. All right, sir. So I think we've definitely taken a lot of your time. Thank you
Right.
so much for being here and sharing your expertise with us. This was really helpful and was really a great session. I'm sure
Thank you.
our users have also enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you, Arun. Hope they got some insights into that, because as I said, there is no single person. Even if you ask me who is my role model, I cannot able to say who is my role model in B2B segment, because as I said, it's a teamwork. Sometimes you open an account and someone else close the account. Sometimes it's a hierarchical work where you start an account and your senior close the account. So it's always a teamwork. There is no single hero. So all of us learns through process and a practice over direction. So best of luck for the users, those who are into B2B space or would like to get into B2C space. I think, as Sai Baba said, patience and trust, Shraddha and Saburi is what is two paramount skills anyone will require into B2B space.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very
I
much.
mean, and thank you for sharing your expertise with us. I mean, like, your 20
Thank you very
years
much.
of experience, it's been great. So we just get a little glimpse into your, like, I mean, as you said, like, there's no one this, but we can count you as one of our mentors for the B2B users who
Sure.
are into that.
Definitely. And anyone is welcome. They can directly get in touch or through you primarily if they require any help, always willing to help. As a community, there is always happiness to give back to a community, whatever learning we have gathered over the period of time, right? So always welcome.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.